Hello and welcome back to my kitchen. My name's Johnny and I'm here to share with you some of my favourite plant-based recipes. Healthy food that is kind to the planet and will satisfy even the most committed of carnivores. Today we are going to be making a sumptuous chocolate and cherry gateau. A decadent celebration cake to share with friends, and they probably won't even notice that it's plant-based. This is such a versatile recipe. You can add all kinds of different flavours to the sponge and fillings, and if, like me, you are beginning your plant-based journey, this is a must-have in the repertoire. Right, what do we need to get this cake going? Well, firstly we have the wet ingredients. For this you'll need some dairy-free milk, some cider vinegar, and some good quality vanilla extract. Next off we need some caster sugar, and some dairy-free or vegan butter or baking fat. It's absolutely vital that both the dairy-free milk and the fat are both at room temperature. I'll explain about that later. Next off we have the dry ingredients. For this you need some self-raising flour, some cocoa powder, and some bicarbonate of soda. And then finally we have the ingredients for the filling. For this you'll need 1 tub of plant-based double or whipping cream, some icing sugar, a little more of that vanilla extract, and then some dairy-free, good quality dark chocolate for decoration. And that's it. I prefer to use oat milk in my kitchen. The reason I'm predominantly plant-based is for environmental reasons, and in my mind, oat milk is the least impactful. All other types of dairy-free milk will work just fine in this recipe. Almond milk, or if you can find it, hazelnut milk, will lend the sponge a lovely background nutty flavour. Firstly, let's preheat the oven to 180 degrees C fan, and then we need to grease and line our cake tins. This sponge does best when cooked in thin sheets, so I recommend dividing the mix between 2 cake pans. The rise in this cake comes from the reaction between the vinegar and the bicarbonate of soda, and this will start happening as soon as those 2 ingredients meet. Therefore, it's important that we have the cake tins prepped and ready to go in the oven as soon as the batter is made. Okay, so we've washed our hands, our ingredients are weighed out, we're en place. Let's get baking. And wish me luck, this is going to have to be done in one take. So, first step, into a bowl goes our dairy-free milk, our cider vinegar, and the vanilla extract. This does seem like a slightly bizarre way of making a cake, but trust me. At this point there's a very good chance that the milk is going to curdle, but don't worry, this is absolutely normal. So we just give those a little stir just to get the vanilla essence incorporated nicely. And while that's doing its thing, we can cream together the butter and sugar. So into the bowl goes the dairy-free butter or margarine and the caster sugar. And we're just going to beat those together lightly with a wooden spoon. As I said before, it's absolutely vital that both the margarine and the dairy-free milk are both at room temperature. When we introduce the milk to this butter, we don't want the cold milk to then re-chill the butter, otherwise we're going to end up with pesky little lumps of butter left in our batter. Easy for you to say. You could use an electric mixer for this process, but to be honest, it's such a quick process I don't find it worth taking the time to get the mixer out and having to clean all the attachments. I tend to do it by hand. Anyway, they look nicely creamed together, so now we'll go in with our dry ingredients. So that's the self-raising flour, the cocoa powder, and the bicarbonate of soda. And we just want to sieve those over the butter and sugar mix. Note to self, next time you do baking, don't wear black. So we just want to fold those together lightly. And then I think we're about ready to go in with our milk and vinegar mix. As I said before, from this point in, time really is of the essence. And we also want to mix this flour mixture as little as possible, as is required to get everything well combined. Once flour gets wet, stirring it starts to form gluten. This is absolutely great when you're making bread. It's terrible when you're making cakes. You'll end up with a chewy sponge and you won't have that lovely crumbly texture that we're looking for. So we just want to fold these ingredients together, get them nicely combined. And just give it a check just to make sure you haven't left any lumps of flour. Otherwise you'll end up with these hard little white lumps in your sponge. And nobody wants that. Right, that's looking nicely combined. I think we're ready to go into the baking tins. So we've got our two pre-greased, pre-aligned baking tins, and we are just going to divide the mixture evenly between the two. There, and then we just want to smooth these out just so we get a nice even cook on them. Now these are going to go into the oven for around 20 to 30 minutes. I'm going to come back after 20 minutes and just poke them with a wooden skewer, and if the skewer comes out clean, they're good to go. If not, I'll pop them in for another 5 minutes. And then I'll keep checking them at 5-minute intervals until they're done. Okay, let's get in the oven. Yep, they look about done. Right, we'll get these out of the oven. And then we just need to leave these to cool for just a couple of minutes in the tins before we try and turn them out. Top tip, I'm using a loose bottomed cake tin for this. So just pop them on a large ramekin or a jam jar or something of that sort, and then you can just slide the sides down and get underneath the cake. It's important to let these cool down a little because this is so much easier if you can actually handle the cake tins. Trying to do it with a tea towel just gets a little bit cumbersome. Okay, these need to cool completely. So in the meantime we can crack on with the chantilly cream for the filling. So for the chantilly cream, I'm using a plant-based double or whipping cream. It's important that you buy double or whipping and not some of the single plant-based varieties, because the single varieties just will not whip the way we want them to. So into the cream goes the icing sugar and some more of that vanilla essence. And then we give it a whisk. So we're at stiff peaks. It's holding its shape quite nicely when you lift the whisk out. So I'd say that's about ready. But like I said, we need to let these sponges go absolutely stone cold before we do anything else with the decoration. So this can go in the fridge and grab yourself a coffee. Okay, so the cakes have had a couple of hours now. They are completely cold. We're ready to start decorating and assembling the cake. I find it's always best to build the cake on the plate you're going to serve it on, Once these cakes are all decorated and looking lovely, they can be quite difficult to move. This way you don't have to risk moving it and undoing all of your hard work. So, on with the first layer. There are a few cracks in this where it's sinking back down, but we're going to cover this with jam and cream. No one's going to see it. So, in with a nice generous layer of this cherry jam. And then using a palette knife, we're just going to spread this all the way to the edges of the cake. And then we can go in with our cream. So take a generous dollop of the cream, probably around just over half of the mix. We need to save a little for decorating the top. And you don't want to go right to the edges with the cream because the weight of the top sponge is going to push some of this cream further out. And you don't want it all spilling over the edges. We want it looking nice and neat. Right, now we're ready to go in with the top layer. So we're just going to carefully lower that top layer on like so. Looking nice and straight. We put a little bit more cream on the top. Spread that around with the palette knife. And then we can decorate it with a little bit of this dark chocolate. Just grate that over the top like so. Give it a nice dusting of dark chocolate. And there you go. Chocolate and cherry gateau, 100% plant-based. Let's have a try. Decadent, chocolatey, just delicious. I hope you enjoyed watching today as much as I enjoyed eating that slice of cake. And maybe this has inspired you to try going plant-based with your diet, even if it's just for a few days a week. And thank you to everyone who's been watching my episodes and subscribed to my YouTube channel. I can't wait to see you all again in my kitchen soon for the next episode.